Welcome, buonasera. We are here in Basel, and it's not Design Week. And incredibly, we are talking about design in a period that is normally not dedicated to this kind of topics, because we precisely wanted to unhinge the period and the theme. We wanted to start talking about critical design and spatial activism in a period that is not usually connected to this kind of thematics. We wanted to break the concept of weeks, and thanks to the fact that we have this space, that Basel is an open space, everyday open public space, this is a public arena, public square, we wanted to start thinking of Basel as a platform for design thinking, design reasoning, design critique throughout the year, without having to dedicate our time only 1 week at a year. And that's why we also imagined a path to go towards April's week, together with Erica Petrillo. Erica is an international curator. She's based in Milan, but she works in the world. She's peculiar because she has a background rooted in political science and spatial activism. And this is very specific, related to the concept that we are trying to tackle this year in Basel. Erica proposed a journey to us that will vary in terms of scale, from the world to the local environment and back, from the city to the world. And is also different in terms of formats. Today we will have a lecture, next time is going to be a conversation, the third appointment is going to be a workshop. So we're also trying to diversify the formats. A journey that will lead us into a specific world, that is the world of convivialism. Convivialism is the topic that we chose for Basel for this year. We called Basel the convivial laboratory. What does it mean? It means that we are trying to dedicate this year, thanks to our activities, cultural activities, artistic practices, encounters, talks, concerts, whatever we are going to do this year, to 2024, to convivial practices that are linked to specific principles, such as cooperation, democracy, dialogue between cultures, equal dignity, and ecological responsibility. And to do it, we will use performativity, actions, cultural practices, and everything we will need to try to destructurize and rethink the way we look at the world and the way we look at how we live together, how we cooperate, how we inhabit the world. I just stop and I will leave the floor to Erica and to our guest. I wanted just to give you a disclaimer, is an information. We have begun with Basel to follow a project dedicated to accessibility to cultural centers. What does it mean? It means that we are inside a multifunctional space, and it means that you might need some instructions from me to actually find yourself into this space. So if you don't know it, down on the right side, up the stairs, there is a toilet. On the right side, up the stairs, on my right side, there is a bar. The talk will be in English, and we will have subtitles in English, as you can see. If you need any decompression, any time for yourself, you can ask to my colleagues that you will find with a yellow pin. Those are people from Basel that will lead you to a decompression space where you can have some rest, and then if you want, you can come back. What else? We have produced a fanzine that you find at the entrance, but I will leave Erica to talk a little bit more about this material. Just to say that is an important material, so if you didn't take it, please go and take it. Because in this material, you can actually go deeper in the topics, the themes, and the approach that we are following. So it's something that can help you follow as well this talk. Thanks to Erica, thanks to our guests, and I leave you introduce our talk. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's very nice to see many friendly faces. I'll sit down because I'm a bit shy, and I prefer to sit down. On May 3rd, 2023, a 23-year-old student pitched a tent in Piazza Leonardo, right in front of the Politecnico di Milano, to call attention to the issue of high rent in the city of Milan. Her name is Ilaria Lamera. She's from Bergamo and studies environmental engineering at Politecnico. To her, the impossibility of finding affordable rents translates into a more than 3 hours commute every day, just to be able to attend classes. Ilaria remained with her tent in front of Politecnico for nearly 1 week. As the days went by, other students pitched their tents and the protest grew bigger. The symbolic impact of this forest of tents and the media attention that they garnered meant that the Movimento delle Tende branched out in other Italian cities too, including Rome, Bologna, and Pisa. The student protest of last spring was not an isolated event. Rather, it represented a very evident manifestation of a much larger question that has to do with the livability of cities today. A question that, of course, doesn't concern commuting students only, but all of us. Milan especially is a city in which social inequalities are rampant, educational justice languishes, services get increasingly privatized, working conditions are precarious, and air quality is exceptionally bad. And yet, Milan is also the city that more than any other in Italy brands itself as a prime example of urban success. The hiatus between the image that Milan has constructed for itself through marketing and advertising, with the complicity of institutional politics, and what the majority of its citizens really experience, is well documented by several books and articles that have been published in the last year, including the book L'invenzione di Milano by Lucia Tozzi, and an article by Andrea Bagnato, revealing the collusion of certain protagonists of the Design Week with real estate speculation. This widespread malaise is further documented by the multiple grassroots movements and collectives, including Abitare in Via Padova and Milano in Movimento, just to name a few, that are carrying out a daily fight for more just housing policies. The public program CASE stems precisely from this context and these conversations. Every year, BASE picks a topic selected out of a criteria of urgency and necessity, which subsequently informs its yearly programming. This year, as a curator in residency at BASE and in conversation with her team, it felt natural to focus on the housing crisis and make it the pivot of a discursive public program. Soon we realized that challenging the current housing conditions opens up a much broader debate, which is not only about decreasing rents and demanding better services, but it's really about the possibility, the very possibility of living together in a fairer, more inclusive, more sustainable society. We had opened the Pandora box of questions brought about by the possibility of better coexistence. And this is really what CASE is about. The public program doesn't deal directly with the housing crisis in Milan. Rather, it takes the episode of the student protest of last spring and uses it as a driver, a volano, we would say in Italian, to ask itself what it means to have a better coexistence and how this can be achieved. How to build a fairer, more inclusive, more sustainable society? These questions are so big that one is intimidated by their scale when approaching them. Imagine trying to change an urban reality like Milan, that is not even that big or populated compared to other megalopolis, and yet it is already so complex. I personally find it easier to grasp the challenge of coexistence by looking at smaller social units that live, quote unquote, outside of the norm. Perhaps communities that have withdrawn or have been exiled from the city, or artist-run spaces, collectives of workers, alternative educational centers that experiment new forms of collective learning and mutualism, and try to put forward alternative modes of managing labor and resources. But also, as you will see in today's lecture, refugee camps and camps for victims of earthquakes that actuate alternative ways of managing commons. It is in all these various realities that might be considered fragmented, but are in fact omnipresent, and that are perhaps not even that tiny, especially if you consider them as a planetary network. It is here where we should direct our attention in search for alternative blueprints. It is as if these communities, by virtue of their condition of outsiderness, had more chances, or were forced to, start from scratch, and could consequently redraw the parameters of their social landscape. The public program CASE tries indeed to collect various examples of such alternative blueprints for coexistence, and it starts today with Turkish art historian and sociologist Pelin Tan. Pelin is currently professor at the Faculty of Fine Arts, University of Batman, based in Mardin, Turkey. For more than 2 decades, she has focused on urban and territorial conflict, commons, labor conditions, alternative pedagogies and methodologies in art and architecture. She has been awarded numerous fellowships, curated multiple exhibitions, co-directed films, and has held various academic positions in universities around the world. Her current short documentary, Landscapes as Archives, about the production of architecture of Palestine, is on show at Khatam Foundation, Ramallah. One last word before giving the floor to Pelin. Case, plural of casa, is an Italian word that merges 2 meanings: the architectural structure in which we live, which is house in English, and the apparatus of relationship and symbols that makes us feel at home, the equivalent of home in English. It is important, I think, that when we discuss the possibility of better forms of coexistence, we also consider the symbolic meaning of case, the home bit of the term. There is a zine, as mentioned by Linda, that accompanies this episode of the public program, and the zine also addresses this lens, the home of case. The zine features texts by Pelin Tan, Marta Rosler, Svetlana Boim, the collective Abitare in Via Padova, and Laila Sit Aboha. In her text, Laila, an Italo-Palestinian researcher and activist, writes, "I, together with millions of other Palestinians in exile, claim belonging to a partly unknown place, where our family stories have been overthrown by those of the colonizers, but have been transformed into a memory that has never been dissolved. Is it possible to call home the place we come from, but where we have never spent our daily lives?" And with Laila's words, before giving the floor to Pelin Tan, our thoughts and rage goes to Gaza, to Palestine, and to the millions of Palestinians that demand the right to their home. Thank you.
I sit here. Okay.
Thank you very much, Erica. Thank you very much, Pace, for inviting me. I just did fly today from Istanbul to here, and I did a long flight yesterday to Istanbul, so it took me some hours to come here. Erica specifically asked me for our ongoing research and engagement and the cases of the refugee dwellings and refugee camps that we are working with my researcher and student and myself in last years. And in Turkey, official camps were not existing before the Syrian war, but Turkey is a kind of a cross-land, cross-country that many migrants, undocumented migrants, refugees, and different kind of type of migrants, they have a different various juridical status. We're passing already in the 90s, especially through Istanbul, through Izmir to west, crossing the sea to Europe, to Greece. And this was very common, but it was unspoken that many people didn't know, the public didn't know. And in reverse, compared to Europe, the exact juridical status of refugeehood doesn't exist it was not existing, and I think fully in a juridical sense it doesn't still exist. So it's very different that Turkey is since last 10 years facing such a situation. I'm living in southeast of Turkey, which is 20 minutes to Syrian border. And when we started an architecture school like 11 years ago, in 2013, we received a lot of migrants crossing from the border. And sorry, I have to control this too. And yeah. And generally, there was two types of situation. One was official camps organized with the Turkish state and United Nations and established immediately. I think 37 official camps was designed and constructed and established in the southeast of Turkey from Mardin, let's say, to Antioch. I mean, this line. I will show later in the map. Because I think the orientation is important, the geography is important, because there are many little towns along the borderline, Iraq and Syria, and there are many big cities like Antep and Diyarbakir and Urfa, I mean big cities with a large amount of population and large urban expansion. And each cities have different kind of function. I don't want to tell the story of urban story of southeast of Turkey, but it is very interesting to understand in researching or engaging a refugee camp, which I experienced in Jordan and Palestine, in West Bank too. There are near cities that they have different kind of features of production which affect the camp or the camp affects the city. In case of Antep, for example, you will hear during my presentation, is a logistic big town, is a rich town, and it's just like by car half an hour to the border, facing to the city, to Kobene. And this city receives a lot of migrants. When we say refugee, you know that refugee has an official status. They have a paper and they have a means of protection. They have access to health system, which is very important. And then they have monthly small fee that is paid by United Nations and Turkish government or any other government. I mean, I'm speaking about in generally defining it. And then there is undocumented migrants that they don't have any official status, which is difficult for them to get health care, for example. There are, just to give a small info, Syrian refugees are more privileged in Turkey compared to Afghan, to Palestinian, or to other African immigrants who have no access so much to health care or any other kind of care system. So it's very strange that that many people look to Syrian refugees or research or try to understand, but in Turkey we have Pakistani, Afghan, and many other kind of country. Congo from Africa, Izmir, for example, the city has a lot of Congolese people, Congolese community who are totally undocumented, that many of my friends in Izmir, refugee activists are helping for them to access healthcare system and trying to find them job, like mostly daily laborer job. So there's a kind of even hierarchy there. And this is a picture, this is a photo of a half-built tent in a temporary refugee camp. I was telling in the beginning that there is official 37, maybe less now, because some of them are closed. And then they were temporary camps organized and built by the people themselves. And they lasted 1 year, 2 years. It was just 2013 between 2016, let's say, 2 years. And this is an Ezidi camp, like 3,000 Ezidis escaped from Şengal, crossed the border and arrived to Diyarbakır and Mardin. This was very shocking for us, and everybody in Mardin and Diyarbakır, student, teacher union, other chambers of architects from the beginning always. The chambers in Turkey are very powerful, the chambers of architects and chambers of urban planner, and they are totally directly involved with social issues. And they are these chambers are known for that. They are semi-governmental entities, and they have the right to suit the government also. So many years, those chambers are working to protect rights of dwelling, prevent expropriation of land and housing rights that Turkish government is trying to do. They are suing many cases of that leads to uneven development and eviction of people. So they are quite powerful entities. I collaborate a lot with chambers. We do a lot of workshop. We do a lot of student workshop also. And this is, in this camp, for example, this was between Mardin and Diyarbakır. It doesn't exist anymore. It was removed by the government after 1.5 years. But almost 3,000 people arrived from Şengal, and actually 1,500 people, mainly women and children, remained in this camp. And mostly the women, they built themselves, they organized the space, the public spaces, semi-public spaces themselves. This was very important for us to understand what kind of space we are dealing. We are in a territory that the border politics is influencing, and the policy is unstable. We are in an unstable territory, and this is also affecting a lot the political situation, the economic situation, and the labor, the work system also. And we check the landscape, how the landscape is transforming according through a flow of migration, temporary settlement, and issues of dwelling. But the most common things for us was how these spaces are existing, even temporarily, and how we can learn from them. Because in the architecture faculty, when I was teaching the studio, for example, with the, by the way, I'm not an architect, and in Turkey, if you're not an architect, you cannot teach studio officially. So always one architect was with me in order to open the studio officially. I don't know how it is in Italy, but it's very strict in Turkey. But I'm okay with that. But we were running, thinking about camps as a space of commons, how people survive, how in such situation, in such kind of emergency spaces, how they construct their infrastructure, their water system, their electricity system, how they design using material to design their spaces. For example, the corridor you are seeing is designed by Ezidi women because they wanted to create a semi-public space that they can connect the tents. Their relatives are living in the tents, and they want to connect, like create a little tribe, because most of them, they are tribes large families, and they are connected to each other, and they want to protect themselves because as an ethnic community, they are not Muslim. And where we are living, there are many Yazidi communities and Christian Arab communities, but mainly the territory is a Sunni Muslim community. This kind of information, this kind of religious and ethnic identities is super important to understand the tradition of living, tradition of neighboring and hospitality, and how it can connect to idea of the dwelling. This is, I think, very important. For me, it was very important to understand always what kind of scale we are speaking about. I mean, for me, it was very interesting what is the toilet in the refugee camp and how women are connected to kitchen, to water shower places, and then to the toilet, and how this is so important for the survival of creating a habitat. But then scale can be very narrow, like a corridor, and the corridor is connecting many tents and many people and hospitality, but at the same time, this corridor, this tent, this camp is very much large connected to Iraq, to Shangal. So the proximity was very important, that I was feeling that this landscape, this territory was getting small and large. It was very flux with different kind of parameters. So it was very important for me to understand, still I'm trying to understand, what are these parameters and how it gets so small as a scale, physical scale, as a space, and how it is so large that goes beyond a transnational migration and its space. We do with the student a lot of action research. We directly involve, and our aim was generally not to design refugee camp. We were not interested. I wasn't interested with that. For me, it was more important how we can learn and archive, how we can archive dwelling and conditions of dwelling. The other thing was important, the institutional and non-institutional context. In the camp and outside the camp, there are many institutions, for example, the government, state, United Nations, a lot of association, union and chambers, and solidarity associations, solidarity groups. And it is important to understand how those institutional constellation functions in a camp and outside of the camp, and how we can proceed or methodologies that is not necessarily always embedded in a university or in an institution, but can act outside of it freely, that really can contribute, engage and contribute to society for both sides, not only we contributing them, but also the other side. I go back, okay, I go like that, I'm sorry. This is I just wanted to put geography, because sometimes it's difficult to imagine, you know, where we are, what I'm speaking about, where I'm speaking about. Mardin is where the blue spot is, and there's a smaller version. And there was, like in Nusaybin, which is a border city, a Kurdish town in Iraqi and Syrian border. This line is full with cities, mostly Kurdish towns, that are surrounded with refugee camps. One was in Nusaybin, and the other one was in between Midyat and Mardin. And there were many temporary camps in around. And you see, and this is the first arrival. This is an important experience for us. We have a bus station, regional bus functions here. I use a lot too when I go to Diyarbakir or other cities. This bus station was immediately opened for arrival of Yazidis escaping from Iraq. I think people were arriving, like 3,000 people, 4,000 people in one night by foot, walking, crossing from the border and walking and arriving. And the municipality immediately accommodated them through this bus station. And they lived here around almost 1 year in the bus station. And this was also an interesting experience. They received aid from Turkey from many people. People sent everything, blanket, food, this and that. And there was the teacher union, architecture student, chamber of architects, municipality, and the healthcare union. They were working full-time in voluntary in this place. And there was a school, the union set up a school immediately, a big tent. They started to volunteer children, small children for their education. And there were refugee women who immediately started agricultural cultivation gardens. I have many photos and videos, but I don't like to show people, so I'm very sorry for my poor images. Just to remind you, this is the data from 2016. And we are speaking 2.5 million refugees arriving from 2013. And then most of them, you see the camps, where the camps are situated. Some of them are closed. I will tell you why. And this is an information data from 2016, so you understand the geography, where how many is placed and how many people arrived. Some of them get paper, some of them they were remaining illegal, and they will continue to cross from Izmir to Greece through Aegean coast, and from there to Italy. This is just one of the student workshop we started to think about the idea of commons, how these people are creating their public spaces in the camp, how they are engaging to the city, how they are trying to find work in the near agricultural land or in the cities, inside the city. We are speaking about, this was like 11 years ago. Now, the refugees who are living in the camp, they can leave in the morning, go to work, and come back in the evening. Most of the refugees are working whole Turkey right now, most in southeast, in the south, and in the west. Most of the agricultural lands, the whole workers are most Syrian refugees. This is one thing. The second is the West collection. The West laborer, collecting West and paper in urban space and then separating them and selling to a subcontractor who is semi-government and controlled by the government. So this is something like one of the main two jobs, and then there are other kind of jobs that they're working, and they can go back in the evening to their camp. Just a small information, not all the Syrian refugees are living in those camps. Most of them who have a better income or little wealth, they live in the cities, city centers. They rent house and live in the cities. But many refugees like Congo people in Izmir, they don't have any access to healthcare system, and they are working again illegally. And so it's a kind of a different, when we say refugees, we are generalizing a lot. I just want to give that true labor condition and through the work type and working illegally without insurance, and as a laborer, like precarious way, as a precarious labor, there are differences that you need to understand, and you need to understand the space. Just small example again. In Batman, in the city of Batman, which is on the north of Mardin, the Syrian women are on the control of waste collection and separation. It is their job, and they're controlling it. And in the night, in 12 o'clock, 1 a.m. in the night, in Batman Street, you will see women who are holding the streets and collecting and working on this kind of uncommon economy. So it's an interesting to know, to understand also the gender situation, the labor situation. So this was a kind of a student work, undergraduate architecture student, that we tried to give a sense of what is refugeehood is, what is refugee, what is a camp, what can you do in the camp, how the camp can connect with other people. In this kind of workshop, it is important for us to understand how you can create and set up a basic infrastructure. This is during Kobene war, and many Kobene, people from Kobene crossed the border to Antep, and they lived in existing places. This is a bulgur factory that many Kobene people set a tent and they lived here for a while. I mean, for a while means I think it was almost a year, and then most of them remained or turned back to Kobene. This is the current last December data. You can also see that here. I can share the presentation, whoever wanted also, or I can share the sources, the reports. But it's important to understand that how many Turkish government is granting Syrians, nationals. Again, you see here no Afghan, no Congo, no Palestinians. I mean, it's only about Syrians, because European Union pays and United Nations pays for Syrian refugees. So it's very strange, the situation. Keep them there. Don't let us come here, you know, like this is the ideology. Going back to the Yazidi refugee camp, we were also engaged there with other unions and solidarity people. What we did, we created a small booklet of archiving any scale of design, from lighting system to tent to basic infrastructure. And we did a visual essay, and then we transformed the visual essay to architectural drawing. So it was the other way around. You draw first and build, but what we did, we transformed to architectural drawing from the building and created the archive. We call this archive Comes as Commons and Commons as Camps. And this was very important for us to get involved with people. As you see here, when I was speaking about institutions, the unions, I mean, the teacher union, healthcare union, Rojava Association, Diyarbakir municipalities, Doctors Without Borders, Mesopotamia Ecology Association, all were involved here, and there were many tasks that all of us we were sharing in the camp. So this was a kind of becoming a kind of a collective space, and this was like transforming into architectural scale what was existing, and from the photos and from all the analyses. And mostly, I mean, is built by mostly women themselves, those places. And then focusing on the gardens that they created. With Mesopotamia Ecology Association, which is an activist ecologist from Diyarbakir, they brought their seed, and they did seed workshop with the children and women. And each tent and woman created small gardens, vegetable gardens, in between tents, and this was something that this vegetable was able to feed them. They were sustained through the vegetables, and this was very interesting because this was before COVID. It was 2016 that in 2019 during COVID we started to speak about having a small garden, survival, and so on, infrastructure, and so on. But this was kind of a little test. We understood that what we went through. we, in that year, we worked with this camp, but we went to Mytilene, to Lesbos Island, to Pikpa Solidarity Space. Is a place, I don't want to say a camp, but Pikpa receives refugees from the sea, from Aegean Sea, and shelters them. So it was very important for us to understand, not camp, but a shelter, a space of shelter, how people survive for a while and continue their journey there and get aid. So, and then we saw many little gardens in Pikba too, how the people were producing their own vegetable gardens. I go back again, 1 second. Just a quick note, 3 camps is closed, official camps were closed. This camp that we worked, the Ezidi Çınar camp, is destroyed by the government, Turkish government, in 2017. It doesn't exist anymore. Some of the refugees went to this camp, some of them went back to Şengal, and some of them asked to Europe to get a refugee ship. This, after that, Midyat is also closed, and Nusaybin camp is also closed. And we were wondering, because the government built those camps in a common governmental land. It's not a private property, it's a public governmental land, and they expropriated the land policy, which means you can destroy and build houses now. And it was very interesting that there was a discussion. Is the government building those camps for land, able to expropriate land in order to build housings? Because housing speculation and market, it's the main economy in Turkey right now. The construction market is the main economy, and this is going on since 15 years like that. And everything what the government wants is to build houses, but then it's so strange that there are so many houses, but there's a housing crisis. So how is this possible, you know? How you are not able to rent a flat, but there is a lot of construction site all around Turkey. Many houses are completed. So this is also another question that comes together with the refugee camps and the land policy and the private property issue. How a governmental land transforms into a private property. So it is important for us to understand what will happen if you close this camp, if the camp has an afterlife or not. It was important for us to, I refer to the French anthropologist who wrote a lot about refugee camps, especially in Africa. What is the dynamics, social dynamics inside the camp, and how the social dynamic influence outside the other cities. And I think this is generally with what I said, economy, different kind of economies, different kind of laboring system. This is an existing camp right now in Antioch, just crossing Idlib, Syria. And there are, I think, 1,500 refugees. In Antioch, there is a big neighborhood also, built 10 years ago, not built, but transformed into a Syrian refugee neighborhood. All those neighborhoods works in agricultural land. Antioch is famous for agricultural production, especially olive production, olive oils, and olive production, and this is the main economy here. And this land, all the workers, agricultural workers, are Syrian refugees. These people from this camp, they go in the morning to work in the agricultural land, and they come back at 6 p.m. There's an hour going out and coming in. Behind the camp, you see Syria, so it's just on the border, We also collaborate with the chambers. I mean, I collaborate with the chambers, with my research team. We did run a workshop in 2019 in Antep. The Chamber of Architects of Antep, they invited us for the Labor Day, 1st May, as a national holiday in Turkey. And people celebrate this, or they demonstrate. And generally, they get present in that day. But we went to Antep and we collaborated with Kırkayak Cultural Association. Is a migrant refugee cultural association. It's a very active one, and we collaborated with them together with the chamber, with many students, architecture students from Antep, to really discuss what is precariousness, what is precarious labor, what is the relation with dwelling, and how the architect's labor is connected also, has a relation with refugee labor, how we can describe the precariousness of an labor of an architect, and how we can understand and make connection with this existing city, which a lot of crisis, housing crisis and dwelling crisis, with two different actors in the city, because there is many Syrians in the town. And this was a kind of a workshop to understand the city, the district, the neighborhoods, and places, what can be developed, where student can be hosted, where refugee can be hosted. So there was a lot of discussion about 2 days. And this was a nice collaboration with the cultural center, with the student, with the school, and also with the Chamber of Architects to think about what is precarious labor and how it is totally related to dwelling condition. I'm just going around same concept, you know, how dwelling and different kind of housing and survival spaces of the survival totally transforms different kind of laboring condition, and how precarity and vulnerability is related, and how vulnerability also creates a kind of a power, because it comes with solidarity and it comes with contact together with different kind of groups and communities, and how refugeehood creates a heritage. I will come back to that. I work a lot in West Bank and especially in the refugee camps in West Bank. Maybe, I don't know how much you know about Palestine. There are many refugee camps that are created in 1948 after Nakba. And in those camps, third generation Palestinians are living, and they're holding a refugee official status, which means they can go back to their land, to their villages. They have the right, I mean, if their land and village exists, of course. And then there is Palestinian outside of the camp, and they are the citizen in the West Bank or in Gaza. But the camps are urbanized. It's different what we are having in Turkey. They are totally urbanized, connected, expanded inside and in the center, in the periphery of the towns, like Ramallah or Nablus or Jenin, Jericho or Bethlehem and Hebron. And we work a lot in Daesheh Palestinian refugee camp, which is in Bethlehem, and in Al-Fawar camp. These two camps are very old urbanized camps built in 1948. And in Daesheh camp, there is an experimental school called Campus and Camp. And architects and activists and artists, Palestinians, they are working since more than 10 years in activating in the camp and discussing about what is commons and what is commoning. We, with my student and myself, we worked a lot together with them. Still, we're doing a lot of workshop and meetings. And generally it's about how we understand autonomous infrastructure, how we can survive with solidarity and with support each other, and what is the architecture of that? What could be the design of that? This is a meeting in a concrete tent with my student, with campus and camp people, with the third generation people, and also older, elderly people of the camp. We are discussing about what is autonomous infrastructure. Of course, the people in West Bank, they are more especially people like my age or more elderly people also experienced in Intifada, the first Intifada and second Intifada. They know how to, they set up schools in the car parks, how they survived without electricity when Israel cut their electricity and all the sorts, and how they are created small solidarity spaces, and what is the narrative and the history of that is very important. And just other kind of little gardens in the rooftops. This is the women's center of Al Fawar camp, and this is the rooftops dropping water vegetable garden. And they, because there is not enough water, the irrigation system is not really enough. And of course, it's military, the Israel military controls everything. So it's very limited condition you are surviving in. And this is the concrete tent, just want to show by Alessandro Petti in Sandi Hilal. This was the tent that, that we were sitting inside as a forum, as a collective space that the Palestinian, Daesh Palestinian refugees, the inhabitants in the camp, they wanted to have a symbol, and tent is their first dwelling of exile, of eviction, is their heritage, is their past. And Alessandro Petti and Sandi Hilal arguing that a tent is not a simple tent, but is a heritage of dwelling. So how we can see the dwelling as a heritage, as all narratives of our cultural attachment or social relation. And this tent, the material, everything was discussed together with the community. It was a total community design that they wanted to have the tent as a material, as cement. So tent is a temporary dwelling, we know, is not sustainable, and is a temporary structure, but has a permanent consciousness, has a permanent discussion. So the cement was presenting that at the same time. The material is a long-lasting material somehow, and then a temporary and permanent discussion. What is temporary and what is permanent? We have this refugee heritage.org it has been attacked by Israel, so we cannot access anymore, I think. But this refugee heritage was proposed by the architects, Alessandro Petti and Sandi Hilal, to UNHCR and UNICEF, saying that, yes, Palestinian village is a heritage in West Bank, in Gaza, and many archaeological sites are heritage of Palestinian culture, but a refugee tent is one of the, or the refugee camps are cultural heritage too, is a architectural heritage too. Why don't you preserve this architectural heritage? They prepared a dossier and they applied to the Preservation Institute to understand what will be the feedback. It's a kind of a provocative, at the same time, discussion. Is a refugee camp, is a refugee space a cultural heritage? What does it mean for us as a basic dwelling and basic place of survival? When we say heritage, I just want to give a little more information that I was going through. I was looking to past designed refugee camps. This is Hassan Fatih, Egyptian, an architect from Egypt, who did a lot of socially engaged neighborhood design. You know, maybe from your education, in your architecture education, design education, maybe you saw in your classes. But Hassan Fatih designed those bit locally engaged. I was trying to understand what he was into it, what was his mind into it. He was very impressed by the local material. He was trying to use sustainable local material in order to create refugee dwellings. This is in Gaza. I'm not sure if it still exists, but this is 1957. And he did also another dwelling project with UNCR, under UNCR, under United Nations, on the north of Jericho, on the way of Nablus. It was difficult to find for me. It is in a village hidden, so I had to really follow gossips. But last year I found those houses. This was built by Hassan Fatih, designed with local idea of keeping the climate, constant, normal climate in this hot weather, using the stone, using the material and design. I have more detailed photos I try to do, but 3 dwellings exist, and some traces exist. It was always a gossip. People say, oh, Hassan Fatih did a dwelling refugee camp, but where? Nobody knows. And it was really like trying to, like a detective, trying to find those places. But it is important for me to understand, I mean, how those places sustain. I just want to close this issue and move a little bit further. When we speak about refugee camp, we speak about outside of the city always, which connects later to the city or destroyed after it. I mean, it has a different kind of afterlife. The afterlife in Palestinian camps is urbanized urban sites. In this case, in Turkey, most of them get closed when they leave to Europe, escape to Europe, migrate to Europe, or go back to Iraq or Syria or other countries. But there are camps like this one, City Plaza Hotel, refugee solidarity place. This was inside Athens, in the center, one empty hotel building that was squatted by Greek activists and Syrian families. I think it was 157 families. They squatted in one day, and they stayed almost 3.5 years running autonomously this place, this refugee solidarity place. And they were saying, the actor was saying that, I don't have so much photos. This photos is from my article. I published that in Chicago Architecture Biennial book. I can share if you want. It was forbidden to take photo by the Greek activists inside the hotel. This is why I cannot show images. This is closed. They decided to close after 3.5 years. It was a common decision between the people who were living there. But this place was an interesting example. They were saying that now we don't want a camp outside of the town, somewhere there. We want in the center of the city. Athens, Greek, is under economical crisis. People cannot pay rent. People don't have housing. Center of Athens are empty, and we want to squat and we want to live inside the city. It was a claim also, not about the refugeehood, but it was also about the unstable economy of Greece, this precariousness of many Greek people cannot rent a house, and they cannot provide a place for dwelling. So it was very much like a combination of precariousness of Greek people who cannot really survive in terms of housing and dwelling crisis, and then there are refugees arriving to Patras, to Greek islands, and coming to Athens to trying to find a place to live. So this was very important example for me that I visited a lot, and some of the Greek activists are my friends, so I knew the story very well. But it was very interesting, and this hotel was bankrupt because the owner couldn't pay the taxes. And then the owner asked, please pay the electricity bill because I cannot pay, and you're squatting and you're not paying nothing. So it was a kind of a public debate between and this public debate, you can read it as a housing policy performance, that how a hotel owner cannot open and cannot provide the infrastructure of the hotel, but the hotel is squatted by refugees and who are living and sheltering themselves. This is Matera Basilicata. this is refugee dwelling built by especially refugees who are arriving by boat, basically to Sicily. From Sicily, they take a bus and they go up. They work in, as in Turkey similarly, they work in the agricultural land of Basilicata, and there are hidden detention camps in existing buildings in kind of north of Matera. And this is a project, I created an archive called Dwelling as Archive, Archive as Dwelling. It was a dwelling history of Basilicata. I was invited to curate, and I went into agricultural archive and housing archive, and I found, I met Osservatorio Migranti della Basilicata. It's a self-organized farmer people who built an association helping themselves the refugees who are arriving from the sea and from Mediterranean. And this is the dwellings that, especially Africans, in their own style, they quickly building very strong, nice dwellings. And we were examining that. Again, I did the same thing. I transformed with an architect those dwelling into architectural design kind of language, visual representation. And this was also, I mean, this was the project I curated in Matera, Garden Utopia, between 2018 and 2020, like almost 2.5 years. Many villages and many artists and architects are invited. But I want to show more, this is not a different project, but this is a big other project to explain. But I just want to come back this de-archiving dwelling. This is online. I have the website I can show that you can go in. We scanned all the archive material about housing and transformed into the website. So you can see the refugee dwellings in the website too. This project was about the history of Matera, the modernist projects by Olivetti and others, by Giancarlo De Carlo, who initiated, the 40s and 70s, and then how the agricultural activities were really killed by the modern housing projects and modernization of South Italy. I mean, you know better than me, probably, but this was a huge 2 years archive that I went to dig in, and we transformed everything to a website. I call it de-archiving dwelling because I was really trying to de-archive with my all, because I was staying in Matera and then I was going to Palestine. I was coming back and then I was going to Athens, to City Plaza and coming back. It was like a flux that I was seeing so many different situations of survival and dwelling, and then coming to here and dealing with archives and trying to de-archive and understand the dwelling history, housing history, was very much about de-archiving, actually, to organize again. So Community Movements Harvest was the title that I gave for this exhibition, and it's online, you can go in. But I did met this Observatory Basilicata, this migrant organization, and they are very active, and I invited them to the exhibition. And it was very strange because for the Matera city, for the cultural people, this association was unknown. Nobody knew them. And they were working since 1996. They were helping immigrants and refugees coming from Mediterranean and other side. And they created the whole, they have a huge visual archive. Since last 20 years, they collected a big archive. And this archive, I asked them to present in the exhibition. There are many failures in such projects. I just want to think again with you, the level of poverty, the level of precariousness, fragility, of not having any condition of security, conflict, the ongoing conflict that creates unstable policy. What you can build with refugees together can be destroyed in the other day. So everything is gone. Yeah? Psychologically, you need to be really prepared for that. Otherwise, you will get collapse. Emergency, war and COVID, every situation creates emergency, and you have to preserve your livestock, preserve your dwelling and your places, your habitats, and you need to do it together with people in support. And there are many failures from the municipality side, from the state side, and decision making is always complex. This is the refugee heritage book we produced. Maybe you will be interested to read. Many architects wrote from their experience. It is mostly focused on Palestine, on West Bank and Gaza, but could be maybe interesting if you want to continue with thinking about refugee heritage. And just want to finish with 2 slides that I'm working on. Working on a film documentary interviewing historians and architects in Palestine and in Lebanon, contemporary architectural practices, how architects and designers are thinking about this heritage, about this conflict, and how they are creating, it's forming their practice, and some historical cases. This is Landscape as Archive, is about West Bank, that I shoot in West Bank in last 10 years. I was inspired by Pasolini's documentary on Palestine. Maybe you know, he went to space hunting for his film, that he ended up shooting in Matera. I watched in Matera, because in Matera I had to, the first thing I watched Pasolini's movie when I arrived to Matera, to understand the whole places, and many other documentaries, of course. But Pasolini had this 1 hour edited, his editor, and when you see the documentary, it's about construction, building highways, building housing, Bedouins and local Palestinians and so on. So it's like very active in the 70s, this whole building practice in West Bank and Jerusalem. And I exhibited my documentary, I mean, Katan Foundation, the institute in Ramallah, they wanted to have 2 together, that the Pasolini's documentary and my documentary, to have this parallel. But this is also a way to collect narratives from the designer and architects and historians also, because there are many colonial histories, Ottoman colonialism, British mandate, Israeli settler colonialism, what is going on. So it's all leveled, and there's a different kind of practices and construction market going on. And it's important to understand with colonial power and with the resistance power also, how you resist, how the Palestinians are resisting, how they're creating architectural and spatial practices, and what will be the different kind of format and methodologies about that. I will ask you also, invite you also to visit Urgent Pedagogies. This is a project that I continue since 2018, is invited by IASPIS, the Swedish Art Council. They asked me to create, with Magnus Eriksson, the director of one of the directors of the IASPIS, an educational design and architectural alternative educational project. This is an online website right now, because we turned during COVID totally online. It's a huge archive of different kind of practitioners, various from Brazil to China, from Lebanon to Sweden, how they're proceeding, how they're engaging with social cases, and how they're replying to the formation of public space under pressure, dwelling and housing problem, public spaces, and so on. And we interviewed many people, many practitioners. You can find the videos also. For example, you will find Amelia, a Greek architect, who is the head of the architecture faculty of Umeå in Sweden. She works directly in Izmir and Medellin with refugees and builds designs with them, public space and shelters. And she's really committed. Her curriculum is totally about that. I think it's very interesting listen this and compare and see different kind of practitioners in different geographies and how they are creating this kind of solidarity practices and how we can speak and stand together and learn from each other and apply to our education and research, which becomes a kind of a tool that can affect and transform I'm not saying the state or governments, but at least the society and have an impact on that. I think, thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you, Pelin. Thank you so much. This was really amazing and inspiring and powerful. I want to open it up to the floor, but before I have a question myself. So I really loved in your presentation the fact that you gave us this overview that was really trans-geographical, like you spoke about cases in Turkey, in Greece, in Italy. And of course I understand that each of these cases needs to be understood in its specificities. But also I would hope that there was a level of cross-pollination, of interchangeability among strategies of common in commons. So I was wondering if in your experience it's possible to, excuse the simplicity of the example, but to take the archive of strategies that you have selected and analyzed in a place and then hope that some of them can be applied elsewhere. Is it like a possible thing or not?
Yeah. There are different kind of level and mediums that can be used. I mean, we are more working in the field of research and teaching. And we don't know the impact. If you open an exhibition, create an exhibition, you don't know the impact, what would be. For example, in case of Matera, the center of Matera is very touristic. It's an Airbnb city, and there's a huge uneven development in class. And many people didn't know this migrant association. Many people don't know that the migrants are working around there. So it was very important to bring that into the exhibition and make the archive online, that everyone can go in and select their own, their own memory or narrative about that. For me, it was very important to add new archives to the existing archives. Like this association had a huge number of images, visual documentary since 90s about the immigrants in Basilicata. So it was important for me to bring them and connect what was happening, what did happen in the 30s, in the 70s, what is happening now. And this is not a local case. This is what we have in Mardin too. Mardin is a touristic city, is an Airbnb town. There's a lot of Syrian workers are working around. So it's so similar, you know. It's a different country, different spoken language, but different. But there's a lot of parallel relation what is going on. I think trying to find different methodologies and medium. Of course, what you can do with an exhibition in that case was important because mayor visited, many people visited in Matera. That was maybe important for the city. But in other cases, it's mostly like teaching and showing different kind of solidarity practices that this can be done inside the city, like in City Plaza case. You can squat a building. And you can, I mean, this was happening in the 70s, 80s in Europe. People were squatting and living, you know. Of course, now the housing policy got strict. The policy of public space got very strict right now in Europe. It's so different. But then there's different kind of way to learn and negotiate with the activists between the owners, the activists between the municipality. It depends also, I mean, I think collaborating with institution like that is important, but it's very depending on the sustainable of the politics. If it is unstable, it's not possible to create a policy or find a solution, I mean. But there are many architects that are trying to work on that, you know, pushing the government, pushing the municipality, trying to really let's find a way for refugees or other kind of precarious people, or we all who cannot rent a house anymore. But what kind of other alternative dwellings, common collective co-housing situation we can find. Yeah? This is going on in the studios, in the architecture studios everywhere. I mean, this is a main issue right now. And I think this is happening in every country, I mean, every city. So it's not local anymore, or I don't see Europe or without Europe anymore. I mean, this is not the case, I think. Yeah. I don't know, I can speak more, but yeah, maybe other questions or people want to say something.
Yeah. Anyone has questions?
Thank you for your lecture again. It was really nice. I was curious about something that you touched upon in some parts of the lecture, especially about Palestine, which became a more permanent settlement. But I was curious about...
I cannot hear.
Ah, sorry. Can you hear me now? No? Okay. Oh, okay. Because I can hear myself in the microphone. Yeah. I'm also a bit shy. I don't like... yeah, okay, I'll just stand here. It's something that you touched upon in some parts of the lecture. I was curious about the psychology of the design of these settlements, because most people that find themselves in refugee camps don't see that as a, well, as a permanent residence or even as their future. They see it as like a step in the process. And in a way, how does that affect the settlement in the sense that, like, when somebody has ownership of a place, they also invested in its future and its survival. But there are places where the people that live there don't have ownership of them.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. This is an important question. There is two ways to answer. One is there is firstly, for designing a camp, United Nations has a manual, like how to design a camp. Actually, this was researched and written by Manuel Hertz, an architect who was criticizing this design. And this official design set up by the government in collaboration with United Nations, there is an architect, urban planner department, the governmental planner department, who is designing through this manual this camp. It was my student, by coincidence. For example, Midyat camp was designed by my master student that time, who was working in the urban planning department of the government in Mardin. And there was one feature parameter that they have to mind. There were Syrians, Christian and Muslim, and they wanted to live separate. This is what they wanted, and he created two neighborhood and separating them with large roads. And you have to have the large road in the camp in order that the big logistic military track can cross, or United Nations tracks can cross. So they have always the road. But then those camps, they look like a detention prison because it's heavily guarded also. Two guards, like one is the foreign police department of the government, and then the gendarme, we say, military. So there are two guarding people, and then there are people who work in the camp, which are governmental people. In case of Turkey, it was AFAD, the emergency department of the government. They were working and staying there. So There are a lot of public spaces. There is a supermarket inside even that you can go and buy with your fee something. Football and this and that, hairdresser and so there are, everything what you need is in the camp. Yeah, they were trying to, I mean, this is the last 10 years ago, last version kind of designing a camp. And this camp didn't function because the people said, we don't want to sit in this room and have TV together. There were tribal people who had a tribe, large families, who doesn't want to sit with other people, you know. There were a lot of problems and they were appropriating the spaces. And this was also interesting to see. How do you appropriate your space according to your own ethnic, religious, cultural practice, you know. It is more easy to appropriate, of course, in the temporary camps. I mean, this was existing place. Go in and appropriate according to your place. In case of Palestinian refugee camp, and in Jordan, and in Lebanon, for example, I was in a camp in Jordan. They don't have a land ownership. They don't have a private owner paper, but they sell their house and they rent. And I was it was outside of Amman. There are many inside Amman and outside of the periphery of Amman. There are several urbanized camps, mostly from 1967 war between Egypt and Israel and so on, and 1948 also, but mostly 60 in Jordan. And it was very strange. It's a refugee camp officially. If you live there, you have a refugee status, but the tent, I didn't show, but I have pictures of cement one-floor dwelling that after tent, you immediately build a cement base barrack, let's say, and then you build one-floor house, and then you build two-floor house. You can have a typology in those refugee camps of housing. I mean, from 1948 to now. And most of them, they sell and rent, but they don't have an ownership. How is this possible? I didn't understand, but this is happening, yeah. I mean.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah, thank you. That was very interesting. No, it answers a lot of questions, and like just in general, like it's very interesting because, I mean, I'm from Greece, and like it's always very interesting, like this kind of, because I found very interesting also, like the one aspect which I wanted to ask more was when you were talking about the bus station and the way people start designing their spaces, that like they were assigned, like these women like to start like making their own spaces. And how how the fact that like they are in a space where they don't know how long they're going to stay there. They're not,
oh yes, this temporariness and permanency.
How it affects the way people build their space, or how much of a home it feels to them, or how much they design it to feel like a home, or are they prepared to leave again? Are they in a state always, or like, oh, we might move in the next day, or we might.
I mean, this is a case for what we see generally. People dwell as a permanent practice, like creating those gardens, for example, or finding a job or something. But there is always a plan. We will go to Izmir, pass to Samos, or and cross the Aegean Sea and cross the Mediterranean. I mean, there's always a plan, or go back. Most of them, they wanted to go back to Shanghai, but then the lifestyle, what people do is always a kind of permanent way. This is why Alessandro and Sandy was discussing about, is it functional, those words, permanency and temporariness? What does it mean? I mean, is our situation as a citizen official in the urban space permanent? No, you can find yourself on the street the other day if you're not owning any house or whatever, So I think, and these people are very strong. I mean, like strong in a way of surviving and continue and so on. I mean, yeah.
Okay, I think we have run out of time, unfortunately. You have, okay, one quick one? Yes.
Thank you. It's a provocative question because I saw many camps in my life. I was in Gaza, I was in Turkey, I was in Thessaloniki in the past. But once we stayed in Ventimiglia, and it's on the border of from Italy to France, and we stayed there because the migrants occupied the stones near the sea, and we built a camp together. Of course, for us, it's for solidarity and to help them to go through the border, but for us it was an experience totalized. And we think that in this experience, we live together, we share the food, we divide the tents, and we knows each other, speak different languages, knows different culture. And the question is, of course, for the migrants, it's necessary as for come si dice, sopravvivenza and survival. But for us, maybe it's a way to go out of the capitalism, to give to this kind of experience all together in a camp. I don't know. Is it difficult to explain in English? But if the lives in the camp,
it was Calais. You worked in Calais.
No, in Ventimiglia, but they go through Calais and they go through Ventimiglia and they pass through from Calais. No, I ask if for you is to live in a camp is a good way to live or a good escape from the capitalism way, you know? No.
I guess the question, if I may, was is it possible, maybe it's a provocation, that from the perspective of migrants living in camps, collaboration with the agents that are not migrants is an issue of necessity, whereas from the perspective of people that are not migrants, collaborating with them is motivated by other kinds of drives. It's not a matter of necessity. So how do we explain this clash?
Firstly, not everyone is involved. Nobody cares. I mean, firstly, I mean there are few people and activists and association and there is a collaboration, but generally there are also. I mean, we know all. You need to take the woman to the healthcare. Illegally, you need to register yourself something, and then you put her in the doctor. We do very strange things. It's not more than collaboration. It's really trying to sustain help and understand that such people can access healthcare for women and children, and for the LGBT people also, you know. It's very important. There are my friends are working 24 hours for that, you know, they're activists, and not so many people are involved at all, you know. I wish that many people can do part-time this kind of things. It's not only refugees. We have an earthquake tent camps now. I was in Antioch a few months ago, and now the refugees are better condition than the Turkish citizens who are living in the camp who lost their houses. They are in the same level now, but the refugees are in a better condition. So they receive money from UN or something, you know. I mean, so it is very fragile and different about. Do you really escape from capitalism, or is it all part of under same consumption and expropriation and so on? But in different cases, like in Turkey, it's more different. Or you know, maybe in Gaza, in Palestine, is open prison, West Bank. I mean, Gaza is better than West Bank. I mean, It's more free place, I mean. But West Bank is an open prison. I mean, you can be killed in a moment by Israelis. I mean, it's very clear, you know. So it is not so much people are involved also. I wish that many of us, more people can really, because you learn a lot yourself also. And it's not about so much, I don't think it's not so much going out of, I mean, capitalism is difficult. We are under that economy, you know, migrant economy, labor economy, and so on. This is going on, you know. Of course, I don't want a woman in the middle of the night in Batman to collect and separate waste, you know. But if you take this job from her hand, she will kill you. You know, this is the situation. I mean, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have really run out of time, so I'm sorry, but if you have more questions, I
we
guess
can.
Pelin,
You can ask me. We are here.
yeah,
I'm here.
Pelin will be around. Yeah,
We have a
And,
drink. Thank you.
Thank you, Pelin, so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah. I just wanted to tell you very, very quickly that there will be 2 other programs. One's on the 28th of February and one's on the 15th of March. And thank you to Linda, Giulia, and Giuseppina, to all the Base team. And thank you, Pelin, so much. Thank you for being here.